You did read that title correctly. I am a Scream 4 apologist, defender. I think it's the best horror movie ever made. I'm just kidding about that part. But it is a very good movie. I think it doesn't get the credit it deserves, frankly. In case you're wondering my ranking of the Scream movies, it's this. Fight me in the comments, I guess. I do just want to make a disclaimer. There is no such thing as a bad Scream movie. Even Scream 3. I'd rather watch Scream 3 than not watch a Scream movie. And while I defend the Scream movies, I'm going to be making a Jill Roberts doll. I have my Sydney doll behind me. She's kind of cute. I already kind of started her. This is my first time rerooting hair. Usually just use the hair they already have, but there's not a lot of brown hair dolls. But I already started rerooting. I'm doing a pretty good job. Reveal at the end. So Scream 4 is kind of a weird movie because it's just there. Get the original trilogy from 96 to 2000. Then there's an 11-year break. Then Scream 4. There's another 11-year break. And then we have a new trilogy after the 11 years. And obviously all the Scream movies are in the same continuity, but it really is like separate series. Because the whole time in Scream 4, they're making fun of reboots.
Working on less of a shriekquel and more of a scream-make, because all there are now are remakes.
So they kind of knew it was a reboot of sorts. And then the new ones are sort of starting their own trilogy. There's already been 2 of them. I assume they'll milk it for every cent it's worth. So there's this original trilogy, a new trilogy forming. So where does that leave Scream 4? It's just in the middle. I actually don't really know the general consensus for Scream 4, but its Rotten Tomatoes score is like shockingly low. It's only one above the third one, and I feel lots of things about the third one. I think the fourth one is one of the best ones in the franchise. So like, what's that? What's that about? But I'm gonna prove that Scream 4 is actually the best transition movie of the franchise. And without it, the new ones would have been really bad. If you haven't seen the Scream movies, I'll give a quick summary of the movies. Okay, so there's the first 3. The first one comes out at a time when slasher movies were getting really bland and they were sort of already making fun of themselves. It's a really clever satire on the current state of slashers at the time, while also being a very good movie and a good slasher in its own right. It sort of started its own genre. If you ever hear the term like post-Scream horror or post-Scream slasher, it's because they're post-Scream. It was in the 90s and the 2000s. There was sort of a wave of trying to capitalize off the success of Scream. There's some really good movies out of that too until the terrible movies that came out in the 2000s. Okay, Scream 1. We meet the main protagonist of the franchise and the best final girl, Sidney Prescott. The setup for the movie is that her mother was murdered a year ago. They think they caught the killer, but this reporter, Gail Weathers, has written a book about how this is not the real killer. She has this best friend named Tatum, and Tatum's brother is Dewey. So these are our 3 mainstays for the majority of the franchise: Sidney, Gail, and Dewey. Their characters are her boyfriend, Billy Loomis, her other friend, Randy Meeks, their strange friend played by Matthew Lillard, Stu.
Fucking hit me with the phone, dick!
And I love Matthew Lillard, so this is one of his most fun roles. Okay, so this is the plot. People are being killed. People are being killed by a guy in a ghost mask at Woodsboro High. That's where Sidney and her friends go. And Sidney is being targeted specifically. The whole idea of this movie is that we don't know who the killer is, but there's enough evidence that we could guess who it is.
Everybody's a suspect!
So it's actually a really good whodunit. The movie climaxes at a party at Stu Macher's house. We get our slasher rules from Randy.
Rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie. You can never have sex. You can never drink or do drugs. Never, ever, ever, under any circumstances say, I'll be right back.
Which also sets up these movies' idea of meta.
Behind you. Behind you, Gene.
They know they're in a horror movie and they know the rules of horror movies. So they could try to circumvent dying by following the rules.
You can't, there's rules. I'm gay.
That's why Scream is so popular, because it comments on the staples and tropes of horror, which gives us these characters who know they're in a horror movie, yet can't escape being in the horror movie. So Stu's party, killers revealed. Billy Loomis, Stu Macher.
Surprise, Sydney.
And if you watch the movie, it's definitely them. They're not subtle. This was all spearheaded by Billy Loomis, who also killed her mother because she made his parents split up. Sydney saves the day. We get our surviving characters. On to the sequel. And of course, this movie did very well, so there is a sequel.
Stab 2? Who would want to do that? Sequels suck.
Scream 2. Sydney's trying to escape the fame and the infamy of being the final girl. She's in college, she has some new friends, new rules, we're in a sequel. We gotta up the body count.
Number 1, the body count is always bigger.
Randy dies, leaving our three main staples. Killer's revealed. It's Billy's mom.
Billy's mother!
And this other guy. Sydney saves the day. Let's breeze through Scream 3. So throughout the sequels, there's a meta of these movies called Stab that are based on the Scream movies. So for these characters, they have the Scream movies too, but they're called Stab, and it's the same events as what happened to them. So they're filming Stab 3. Dewey's in Hollywood, Gail has terrible bangs, Sydney is a hermit. They all meet up in LA. New rules.
Find yourself dealing with an unexpected backstory and a preponderance of exposition, then the sequel rules do not apply. You are dealing with the concluding chapter of a trilogy.
This is the third movie. Anyone could die.
Anyone, including the main character, can die. This means you, Sid.
But no one does. Whatever. Not important. Killer revealed. Sydney's half-brother? Okay. Let's wrap this up. Dewey proposes to Gail. Sydney feels safe again. She leaves her door open. It's the end of the franchise. Or is it? The third movie came out in 2000. Let's skip to 2022. Scream 5. New characters. New era. This is a legacy sequel.
See, you can't just reboot a franchise from scratch anymore. But you can't just do a straight sequel either. You gotta build something new. It's gotta be part of an ongoing storyline, even if the story shouldn't have been ongoing in the first place.
This movie follows sisters Sam and Tara after Tara is attacked in our opening scene. We're back in Woodsboro. In this movie, Sydney, Gail, and Dewey are just supporting characters. We're focusing on our new final girl, Sam, and her sister Tara, and their new friends. I won't name them. It's not important. Besides them, some significant characters are Mindy and Chad, which is Randy's niece and nephew. These four are our new mainstays for the franchise. We get our new set of rules. This is a requel.
Quite a reboot, not quite a sequel. Like the new Halloween, Saw, Terminator, Jurassic Park, Ghostbusters, fuck, even Star Wars. It always goes back to the original.
We're bringing back the old movies while also making way for our new characters. Everyone's related to someone from the original franchise.
New main characters, yes, but supported by and related to legacy characters.
Sam is Billy Loomis's illegitimate daughter.
How you doing, Sam?
Mindy and Chad are Randy's niece and nephew. That one blonde guy is the cop from the fourth one's kid somehow, even though the timeline literally makes no sense why she would have a teenage son.
Jesus, my mom is a character in one of them.
No one cares about the shitty, inferior sequels, Wes.
But who cares? We get our new rules. This is a requel. Legacy characters are up for grabs. Dewey dies. Which sucks because you like Dewey as a character, but it really paves the way for our new characters. We get a party at Stu's house once again. Killer's revealed. Tara's best friend, Sam's boyfriend, who's Jack Quaid. Love that for him. It's the boyfriend again. Our new final girl saves the day. This is our franchise. And this movie is surprisingly good based on the other requels we've been getting. Halloween, Texas Chainsaw, Saw even. These are not groundbreaking movies. Some people like them. I think they're lazy. Scream 5 does a really good job of not being lazy. I think they really know their audience. I think they know the franchise's tropes really well. And they're doing a really good job with it. Let's get on to the next one. What will probably be the first of many in our new franchise. Scream 6 is a sequel to Scream 5. Scream 6 is a loose remake of Scream 2. Our teen characters are in college. The killers are dead family members of the killer in the one before. They're in New York. Blah, blah, blah. It's a good movie. Sydney's not in this one. Gail's our only legacy character. She almost dies, but she manages to survive because you can't kill off everyone. New rules. This is a franchise. It's serialized. Anyone can die. Once again, no one does. Killer's revealed. We got 3 this time. It's Jack Quaid's family. I don't remember his name. Our 2 final girls save the day, and I'm sure there'll be many more. Now you have about 20 years of context. Let's get into the fourth one. It's been 11 years. Gail and Dewey are married and live in Woodsboro. Sydney wrote a book about surviving, and a killer has popped up in Woodsboro once again. So since Sydney is an adult, we get some new teens in this movie. Sydney's cousin Jill, Kirby's her best friend, we get our Billy type for this movie, her boyfriend Trevor, and our two Randy replacements Charlie and Robbie. So Sydney has returned for her book tour, and now she has family members to worry about, her cousin and her aunt. We get our rules for a remake.
I mean, there are still rules, but the rules have changed. The unexpected is the new cliche.
Yeah, you gotta have an opening sequence that blows the doors off, dial up some flashy music video direction, and the kills gotta be way more extreme.
Modern audiences get savvy to the rules of the originals, so the reversals become the new standard.
Although we have already established this is a requel. We get our false party ending at a stab-a-thon, but our real ending is at Kirby's house. We do our version of a final girl circuit, but killers revealed, surprise! It's her cousin Jill and Charlie. Probably one of the best reveals, if not the best, because they really set her up to be our new final girl. But she's delightfully evil.
Believable today, wasn't I? I mean, I told so many lies that I actually started to believe them.
Here's the motivation for this movie. Jill wants the fame of being a sole survivor.
We're gonna know fame like you never even dreamed of.
So much so that she actually betrays her accomplice Charlie and kills him. In her little narrative she'll set up, he'll be the stew, and her boyfriend Trevor, who she kills, will be the Billy.
Is it Charlie, Billy, and Stu? Trevor and you. What the media really loves, baby, is a sole survivor.
Her poor boyfriend, by the way, oh my god. He didn't really do anything wrong, right?
I am not the girl you cheat on.
So she wants to kill Sydney to be the only survivor. Obviously, Sydney survives. In the hospital, she saves the day once again, killing arguably one of the best ghost faces. That's Scream 4. Do you understand how good it is? So where does Scream 4 fit? Quickly, just my thoughts on the movie as a standalone. It's a good time, you know? I think it really follows the tone of the original trilogy. I think the characters are a lot of fun. I think the killer reveal is the best one in the franchise. I like seeing Sydney as a full adult dealing with her past. I like the new generation of teens who like have really no connection to the original murders, but enjoy it nonetheless. I think the opening is so fun.
You're kidding me. Oh my god, I love it. I've seen it 5 times and it still gets me every time.
But here are the actual reasons why I think it's a worthy sequel. It came out at the perfect time. Scream 4 was released in 2011, which is squarely in the remake era of horror. It basically lasted from the 2000s to the mid-2010s, and it wasn't great.
Name the remake of the groundbreaking horror movie in which the villain...
Halloween, Texas Chainsaw, Dawn of the Dead, The Hills Have Eyes, Amityville Horror, Last House on the Left, Friday the 13th, A Nightmare on Elm Street, My Bloody Valentine, When a Stranger Calls, Prom Night, Black Christmas, House of Wax, The Fog, Piranha. It's one of those, right?
I think a lot of these remakes are pretty awful. I think it's extremely hard to make a remake as good as the original, let alone better. I think Evil Dead might be equal to the original, and that's like the only one I can think of. I think they're mostly forgettable. Lots of boobs and blood, and not much character, much charm of the 70s or 80s or 90s. So something this franchise did incredibly right was rebooting and not remaking. I like to think of Scream 4 as sort of the first requel. The Thing came out in 2011 as well, but that's a prequel, so I don't even think that counts. I don't know, Texas Chainsaw has been remaking and redoing and rebooting for like 70 years, for like 40 years. So I don't even know what they have going on. Like, who even cares? You cannot pay me to figure out the Texas Chainsaw continuity. I think it was really lucky that Scream decided just to make a sequel instead of remaking. I don't think remaking would have ever worked with Scream, and obviously they knew that, because the whole meta of Scream would be broken if you just remade it. Like, it wouldn't make... Why would they do that? and it doesn't have requelitis, I will call it. It really is just a sequel. So this is my main point. What if Scream 4 just didn't come out? So it's 2000, Scream 3 has come out, you know, not very well respected, but you know, I'm sure the fans liked it at the time. I wasn't born yet. It's a fine ending to a good trilogy. Alright, so 2011 goes past, 2022 rolls along. There's a new Scream. It's been 22 years since a Scream movie came out. You're telling me Scream 5 feels fresh and original? Have you guys seen the new Halloween movies? Are you telling me they need to exist? Now, obviously, the new Screams don't need to exist either, but they have their place. The fans really like them, so I think the only thing that kept Scream 5 from feeling like a soulless money grab that just relies on nostalgia is the existence of the fourth movie. It hasn't been 22 years since we've visited these people. It's only been 11. And these last 10 years have barely even counted, so it's basically been 5. And don't get me wrong, I think Scream 5 in a lot of ways is a soulless rehash of the first one, but I think it would have felt a lot worse without the buffer. I think it also changed what the fifth one was even about. I could see a whole different story happening without the really good story of the fourth one already sort of setting a standard for subverting our expectations on the tropes. I think if it had been 22 years, it would have relied even more on nostalgia, which is saying a lot because Scream 5 already does have a small case of requelitis, or God forbid, it would have been one of those requels that are actually just remakes with like one character from the first one. Please stop making those. This is the progress so far. I'm gonna have to straighten it. I thought this would be a lot harder. I still have this much of a head, so we'll see. One of the reasons I like Scream 4 so much is that it's just a really good sequel. I know I was saying before it's like sort of the first requel, but it's really not a requel, although we have already established this is a requel or a remake, even though its meta is poking fun at remakes. It really does feel like an addition to the originals. It also does a great job of not relying on nostalgia almost at all. We go back to Woodsboro, but besides that, it's really trying to be its own thing. I feel like just watching Scream 4 and Scream 5 back to back, you can just tell how little nostalgia baity it is compared to the fifth one, which is fine. I'm fine with the fifth one being that way because, you know, it is a requel and that's what they're making fun of, so I get it. Compared to that one, the fourth one, it's just a new addition that you can watch along with the original trilogy just fine. It doesn't rely on overt references. Like it doesn't mention Billy or Stu or really any of the other killers. It's just, you know, sort of mentions, yeah, we've been through this 3 times. Sydney wrote a book. Like, we know what the book's about because we watched the other 3. We don't need any overt references. I also like that the killer's motives aren't based on previous killers. It's sort of based on Sydney herself.
Don't you get it? This has never been about killing you. It's about becoming you.
So I had no idea where to add this into the video. Paramount Plus for some reason has all the Scream movies except for the fourth one. So when I went to rewatch the fourth one for this video, I had to watch my DVD. And I got a very strange ad before the movie. It's for a Scream 4 mobile game, which is the most 2011 concept I've ever heard of. I did look for it. It's no longer on the App Store, unfortunately. I did find some gameplay, so I'll insert that here. Does your favorite Scream movie have a mobile game? So here's what Scream 4 does right. Before I start talking, obviously every Scream movie has its merit, except for the third one. But Scream 4 really corrects a lot of mistakes the original sequels made. First of all, it brings us back to Woodsboro. I'm sure the original sequels were just trying to do their own thing, but I think they misunderstood how iconic of a location Woodsboro was. The second movie just avoids it entirely. In the third one, we get a set of Stu's house, but that's pretty much it. But in Scream 4, we're back. Sydney's been away, we get to see it through her eyes. It had been 15 years since we saw it, so it's cool to bring it back. And I really enjoy that it's been 15 years because we get to see the new generation and how they've sort of made the original massacre an urban legend. Obviously in the 5th one we also go back to Woodsboro, but I think the 4th one is less of a retread of Woodsboro, if that makes sense. It's less nostalgia bait, but you know, I'm happy to be there regardless, 4th or 5th. We also just play on the events of the first movie in the 4th one. The 5th one, we go right back to the house, they make a comment about how unoriginal it is. But the 4th one, we get a party and then a bait and switch, because the final act isn't at the party, it's at Kirby's house. And I think if we had gone back to Stu's house in the 4th one, it would have felt like too much. I think it works in the 5th one because it's been so long, but the 4th one would have been too soon to already go back. We also get a great play on our new final girl. Whole movie, we're sort of led to believe that she is the new Sydney. Everything that's happened to Sydney is happening to her. But we get the great twist, of course, that she is our killer. One of my favorite tropes of the Scream movie is how normal the killers act and then go completely insane for their reveal. Except Stu, because he's like so weird the whole time. So I think that's just a great subversion of our expectations. I think the 5th one does attempt this, because we do have our new stand-in for Sydney, and it is sort of this thing like, oh, will she go crazy? She's Billy's daughter. But I just don't buy it. I think in the 5th one, she's a little bland as a character. I think she does a great job in the 6th one, but initially I wasn't really convinced of our new final girl. I thought her sister was a lot more interesting than her, which I don't think is really a great quality for our main character to have. Also, this movie just feels like Scream. This might be weird for me to say this after I've been hyping up this movie for so long, but I think the most remarkable thing about this movie is how unremarkable it is. You know, it's not trying to be anything it's not. It knows it's a sequel, and it's not trying to recapture the original, it's just trying to be a fun sequel. And I think it does a great job of being a fun sequel. It brings us back to basics without retreading the original, but it also has its own fresh twists and takes on the series. The vibes are just still Scream. By the time I started watching Scream movies, Scream 4 was already out, so I sort of just watched it with the original trilogy. And I was like 11, so I don't think I really realized how long the gap was. I just was like, oh, this is the 4th one. And I think it really works in that way because it doesn't feel like the odd one out of the originals. It just feels like another sequel. The 4th one just feels like such a genuine entry into the series in the way the 5th one just doesn't. I think it's just because it's so nostalgia based and it really does feel like, oh, it's been so long since we've been here, let's do it again. And it really does feel like they're rebooting the franchise in a lot of ways. And this video makes it seem like I don't like the new ones. I think the new ones are great. I think they're a fun time. And I think they're even better than the original sequels, honestly. So it's no hate towards the new ones. It's just that Scream 4 feels like one of the originals despite it being 11 years later. And I don't know how to describe it. It just does. It doesn't feel like it falls too much into like the tropes of the time being 2011, in a way that I feel like the new ones fall so much into being like 2020 horror movies. I do have to mention that Scream 4 almost started its own franchise. It was originally supposed to end with Jill surviving, and I think Sydney gets like amnesia and doesn't remember that she's the killer. And we follow Jill through college as someone else hunts her. And obviously, I don't live in a world where this was ever made, so I can't be like, this would have been so much better than the new ones. Cause like maybe it would have sucked, I don't know. I'm actually perfectly okay with where we've ended up with the new ones. I'm not sad that this wasn't made. I think it would have been very interesting though. And I'm sure 5 and 6 as we have them now would simply not exist if they continued making Emma Roberts Scream movies. That's an alternate universe that I'll never see. I'm just gonna give my general thoughts about the future of the franchise. I think I'm fairly optimistic. I mean, the 5th and 6th ones have been pretty solid. I think this sort of new branch of the series should have one more movie and end in a trilogy like the originals. I really don't see there being enough story for these particular characters to go past 3. They make a lot of money, and I'm sure they'll milk it as long as humanly possible, and they'll get really bad at some point. But for now, in the near future, I'm really having a fun time being an active Scream fan. I literally wasn't born when the original trilogy came out, and I was like 10 when the 4th one came out. So 5 was actually the first one I get to like see in theaters. I'm having a really fun time going once a year to see a new Scream movie. Like I said before, there's no bad Scream movie except the third one. I think Stu should come back. Bring my boy back. I didn't even get into Scream the TV series, but rest assured I have watched it. And I have no comment at this time. I also would like to make a comment about Scream 4's impact. Kirby came back. I don't see any characters from the second or third one being significant enough to come back like she was. So even if you don't like the fourth one, you have to acknowledge its impact in the series. And like, why don't you like the fourth one? Watch it again, it's good. This is how far I got with the doll. I thought in the time I was talking, I'd be way further done with this doll. But here she is right now. She looks just like her. I'll cut to when the doll is finished. Here she is, isn't she beautiful? I mean, I haven't seen her yet, I'm sure she's great. Here she next to Sydney, probably. How sweaty did I get in this video? Anyways, thanks so much for watching. I have some other horror related videos. If you're not too sick of my voice and my my hot takes, if you enjoyed, comment what requels you hate. All of them? Me too. Bye.